it's a matter of wanting something. In my opinion, that we really want to strive to, do this or be better. But in reality is, do we actually really need it?
Yeah.
Right? Do we need to stress ourselves over saying, did I have 100 likes? Did I have 150 likes? If I have below 100, I got to post something to make it better. And it's honestly, it was like stressing me out. But at the end of the day, I'm like, why am I trying to be an influencer? For what reason? It was like, I just did it because so-and-so was doing it.
Yeah.
And so for me, it was like, you know what? It's not worth it.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the DHomerRealestate podcast. We are in season 2, episode 3. And I'm definitely looking forward to this conversation. I feel like it's going to be very impactful and a must see, must listen. Before we get into it, I'd like for you to like, comment, subscribe, download, to do anything just to help the algorithm. Today we have a special guest. Now, this individual, I actually met him through a mutual friend. And the first word that comes to mind when I look at you and when we spoke was real, because you're a real supportive person. You've actually supported myself and my wife's business, cupcake business. So I appreciate that. So yeah, you're real. You are someone who also volunteers and is willing to be vulnerable, which to me, I really appreciate that. And I like, because again, I feel like in today's society, a lot of people are not real.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? You've been volunteering in the mental health space for over 4 years now. Speaking about your journey that, started back when you were 15.
Sure.
So I'm very grateful to actually have this opportunity to speak with you. And the person I'm talking about is mental health advocate, Jaz Khehra. Is it Khehra?
Khehra.
Wow. I'm so sorry.
You're so close.
Jaz Khehra. How are you?
I'm doing well. How about yourself today?
I'm good. So it's kind of like a tradition of the DHomerRealestate podcast to actually start with icebreaker questions.
I knew this was coming. You learn from the best, right?
Yeah, right. So it's only 3 questions, and just answer it as honest as you can.
Okay, cool.
These are very deep.
Right.
So the first question I have is, what would you do if you knew you could not fail?
Wow. When you asked that question, I had like a burst of energy like flow through my heart. And what would I do if, what could you do if you cannot fail at anything, right? And what I would focus on is essentially elevating everyone.
Oh, okay.
So I believe everyone deserves a fair shot at life, right? And if I could provide or a platform or some sort of, let's say device, or let's say go platform, for instance, or some type of channel rather, to elevate you to have access to the basic necessities, right? Or being able to essentially, get that education or that experience and to do it in a way that's very effective that can enhance not just your life, but your loved one, those around you.
Okay, wow.
And so that's what I would do if I cannot feel anything. Some people call it world peace. Some people call it, solving hunger, etc. It's what you like to see individually, as long as it makes a quote unquote positive impact. Yeah. Right. And it really enlightens others to shine.
That's awesome.
So it's very like vague and out there, but for me is like, I'd want to see what does it mean for you as an individual.
I like that.
Yeah.
I like that a lot. And I agree with that.
Thank you.
You're more deeper than I am. If I could not fail, it would be a basketball player or a producer, a music producer.
Yeah.
But yeah, the next icebreaker question that I have, this one is actually really deep now.
Okay.
What is your go-to karaoke song?
Oh, wow. You know what? You should have asked this question. I had a few shots in me. Full disclosure. Go-to karaoke song. Oh, bloody hell. I can't remember. Sorry. I'm not even sorry. Karaoke song. You know what? I have to look at some of my videos when I was just I can't recall right now. It's on someone's Snapchat. I know they saved it. If it was I don't know the song name, but I can describe the type of song it is though. It would have to be a song that everyone knows because my singing skills are are utterly horrible, horrific. So if others were involved, I won't feel as bad.
Oh, okay. So it's
that's
a collective.
It's like, exactly.
I got you. I like that. Now, this one is the last icebreaker question I have for you now is, if you had the opportunity, would you rather speak with your past self or future self?
I speak with my past self.
Okay. And tell me why.
And the reason I speak with my past self is because my past is going to make my present, which is going to make my future. And for me is that I would speak with my past self saying that, honestly, just don't stress out about life, right? Whatever is going to happen, don't avoid these problems, right? They're going to come. Just enjoy everything that you're going through. And so for me is that, like, no matter what life challenges throw at you, it could be simple as, playing soccer and like, for example, house league, trying to get into all-star. You don't make it that year, that's okay, right? Because you look at how you can do and get better. So adopting that mentality, I think, like a growth mindset when I was younger, would definitely have a conversation for myself. But at the end of the day, though, Dondre, if I didn't have that conversation with my past self, I'd just be like, embrace everything and see where life goes. Because there's a reason why, and it's a quote, I think it was from Steve Jobs, right? And he said that you can't connect the dots going forward. You can connect the dots going backwards. And there's a reason why you and I are here today, or there's a reason why, we're in our professions, or we're in our, our personal lives. And that's the reason, right? It's that talk to your past self, just embrace everything, just enjoy life. You don't need to stress out, and just basically love life. So.
I love that. I think I'm the same way as well. I think for me, I rather speak with my past self because I look back a lot and there's things I wish I could have done differently.
Right.
So if I was able to see myself back in the day, I'd be like, yo, before you make before you make this step,
right.
Here's some advice. Now, I'm a big believer in I can't tell someone what to do. And I know, speaking to my past self, I probably wouldn't even listen to me. but if I'm able to, but I was always a person to be like, okay, there has to be a reason why you're telling me this. And I will analyze it a lot.
Right.
And I think that's why I would actually speak to my past self. So I appreciate that. That was the icebreaker questions.
Now I have icebreaker questions for you, actually.
Oh, wow. This is the first. Oh, no.
but I got one question for you, though. And I just want to ask you, how are you doing today?
Oh, wow. I'm good.
Yeah.
I'm good. I'm thankful. I think,
awesome.
This first quarter was rough for me. I can be honest, but I'm at a point now, honestly, I'm just thankful. It's quarter two, awesome. I start off rough. Let's see if I can push it.
That's awesome.
Push for second quarter good.
It's Q2 time now, right?
Right? Exactly. Well, I want to thank you again for introducing yourself and as answering the icebreaker questions.
Scholars is an education center where we help students maximize their truest potential.
With more of that one-on-one focus, smaller class sizes, individual attention, doesn't matter your age, your grade, what subject you're in, Scholars has a program for you.
Now, I want to give you an opportunity to formally introduce yourself and to explain to the viewers and the listeners who you are.
Definitely. So thanks for having me today. I appreciate it. And thank you to Shaq. Thank you so much. Shout out to you. So my name is Jaz Khehra. And, as you so elegantly put it, is that I'm a mental health advocate. I'm not a mental health expert in terms of I've not been trained, so to speak, as a licensed professional, right? Like someone in allied healthcare professional or medicine. I've been a mental health advocate for, over 4 or 5 years now, maybe a little more than that. And I've been essentially by trade is working in IT and doing this on the side to raise awareness for everyone. So I've been ensuring that if I'm able to, take and help you make one step in the right direction and see you happy, that makes me happy.
I love it.
So that's me in a nutshell and a very rough introduction, I'd say myself.
No worries. It was great. That's awesome. And I I thank you for sharing that. I can advocate and also making sure people know that, you're not a professional in the space, however, you're an advocate for it. Sure. And I feel like it's very important to have these conversations. And the conversation, of mental health has become a lot more prominent in recent years in my life personally. So I would love for you to share, like, when did you become more aware of the greater discussion needed for mental health?
Yeah, definitely. The greater discussion for mental health really came up for me was when I was trying to access resources within school. And so what I realized is through post-secondary education, when I was diagnosed, and I'll get into a little bit later on, was the fact that there was not resources available for folks such as myself. What I mean by myself is it was not widely, I'd say, acceptable in society, first of all. And so I realized that there's something that needed to be done here to whether it be increase awareness through education, increase awareness through offering of resources by, partnering with partners within the community. That's when I realized that nothing was available. So it was going back to 2012, 2011, even before that as well. There was not like a light, I guess you can say, shine upon this. And so for me, I was like, these resources have to be available. And that's how I got involved in the last 5 to 7 years or so. I can't remember anymore.
I like that. And I wonder why these resources weren't developed prior.
Yeah.
Like, because I'm sure, like, although the conversations have been brought up more recent,
right,
I still feel like there should have been things available for different people. And I'm always curious to know, why is it, why do you wait until it's, I guess, too late?
Yeah, the 11th hour, right?
Right?
Yeah,
so why do people do that? So that's very interesting. As mentioned in the intro, your story that goes back to when you were 15.
Yeah.
So I would love for you to really just, take the time to really share a little bit about your story.
Yeah, definitely. And going back then, you can't, and what I'll say this is that you can't blame anyone, right? Because going back then, no one knew what the heck was happening. No one understood, why it was happening. And so when I was 15, finishing middle school, going into high school, I've realized that I did not fit in, right? I could not be my authentic self. And so from there, when I tried fitting into a group of friends or anyone in general, I was not accepted for who Jaz Khehra is or who Jazz is. And so from there, I tried fitting in multiple times. I knew when I was 14, 15 that something was up, but I couldn't put my finger on it. And so I was suffering and, studying. So my grades weren't the best. I worked out as much as I could. But at the same time, trying to fit in amongst friends or colleagues. I just wasn't accepted for who I was. So, as the saying goes, why fit in when, you should have stood out, so to speak. I tried the why fitting in part. And for me, it led to, ridicule, bullying. And, back in the day, I don't want to date myself now, but I'm not that old. But back in the day, though, social media was just starting off, and we grew up in the digital age, right? Starting to and beginning to, and not much is happening there, but a lot of it was in person. And so just imagine that you had no outlet who to talk to. You try speaking with someone, but it wasn't there, so to speak. So that's how I going back then, I was just being bullied, not fitting in with the crowd, so to speak. And after that, it was just accumulation of things that were on top of each other. And, it's like when you shake a Coke bottle, right? And the pressure builds up. The pressure was building up, but I wasn't taking out on others, though. It was more self-inflicted, so to speak, in terms of scenarios going through my mind.
Mentally,
exactly.
Yeah. And I think at every point, I think people suffer of this that internal.
Right.
I call it the internal bully, because you're just essentially just bullying yourself.
That's right. You are.
That's something that I do with, or have dealt with a lot.
Right.
Personally. But you mentioned that you were trying to fit in, and you weren't able to be your authentic self.
Yeah, that's right.
Do you mind elaborating a little bit more of like who is Jazz?
Yeah.
Like what was your authentic self then that you wanted people to accept, but they weren't willing to accept?
So, not to speak about myself or anything, but I've been told that I have an open heart. I'm a very nice guy, right? And for that, a lot of individuals, in my opinion, took advantage of it and they saw that.
Yeah.
And for me, what I found was that, when I was younger, I'm an introvert at heart, but I do have my extrovert moments, and I'm a happy balance of both, I'd like to say. And so, trying to be authentic self was just being Jazz, being the nerd, having fun, so to speak, but also, playing soccer, right?
Yeah.
Or being able to play basketball with friends, even though my skills were, I thought they were above average, but they're below average. But just, being like, oh man, brings me back memories. But anyway,
we all had dreams back in the
day. we did. But then when you start realizing, okay, I'm not growing anymore, right? But just trying to have fun and get better. But at the same time, people are saying, why are you playing? Like, you're horrible, right? Or people are saying you're slow, you're stupid. And hearing things like that really brought me down. And I think that the education system at that time, and I don't know how it is now, hopefully it's better, but it was very like lecture style, like how you'd see like in post-secondary education. Still like that back then, was that you go on the chalkboard, you have questions, and you try to bring that up, with the teacher, like, I don't have time, go to math help. Or one student sat in the front, they hogged the whole time.
Oh,
the teacher. Yeah, right. So it's like, okay, stuff like that happens. But going back to like the authentic self was, I tried getting that validation. I tried getting that help, but that help was not available. And when I tried, being who Jazz is, like I mentioned, like the nerd, trying with sports and stuff, I was always made fun of. And then, eventually you begin to, you're the fourth, fifth person chosen for the team. You get dropped down to like, I wasn't last, but it's you start going down there.
Yeah.
And then I stopped playing sports. Then I stopped showing interest. And then I just stopped trying in school, because no matter what I did,
no matter how much you tried,
it
just like no one's accepting it.
No, you had a lot of roadblocks, right? And then internally, it sucks. It really sucks.
No, honestly, I completely agree with that. For me, like one of the biggest things that you mentioned was, school. Now, a lot of people don't know this, but school was never easy for me. Like the work in general.
Yeah.
Like I just, especially from what I remember, is from like grade 3 to like grade 8, maybe.
Yeah.
I just struggled. And that thing when you mentioned about like teachers not caring,
right?
I can smell it. So once I know you don't care about me,
right,
I don't care about you.
That's true. Yeah, that's true.
And I'm gonna become. It's bad back in the day, not now.
Right, yeah.
But I become more. All right, cool. You don't care about me,
right?
I don't care about you.
That's true.
I'm gonna make it known. I don't care about you. And it kind of pushed me back even more. And where teachers, I guess, like they've, do you remember on your work credit? I don't know if it was back in the day. Well, you're a little bit older than me, just slightly, just a tad. Just a tad. But like in elementary, there was like S's, E's.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
N's.
That's right. Yeah,
that part was all N.
Needs to improve.
That's needs to improve.
Yeah,
everything was all N. But except the athletic part. Despite my physical now, back then I was a lot more in shape, and that took a toll on me. And then obviously my parents, my mom is a teacher.
Oh wow!
So she's like, this doesn't make any sense. I'm a teacher. I'm really assisting you. Like, how is this? Like, how are you not really getting the work? I just couldn't get it, and it really, because people just didn't understand from parents, teachers, even students. Right. It just built anger in me. Yeah. And I was like, you know what? I'm just going to shut down. Yeah. And I don't want anyone to talk to. So I can completely agree with, when it comes to school, like how much that can affect. But I'd love for you to share a little bit about your childhood, like with your family, like, where you're from, how's the childhood like?
So born and raised Mississauga. Childhood was fine, honestly. Like I got to play outside with my friends every single day. I didn't care about homework. I only care about playing outside. As soon as I came home, we had a few games. We played football, we played soccer, we played hockey, we played basketball.
Love it.
And when someone got a basketball net, we had 2 courts going.
Okay.
It was fun. It was fun.
I like it.
We used to go to the park. That's all we cared about when we were kids, playing outside. And so, that's what I remember from my fondest memory of my childhood. I didn't, we didn't like travel a lot anywhere, right? Like how some folks get to go to vacation. That's awesome. That's like a new thing now, I think.
Yeah,
right?
everyone's once a year or twice a year.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
But for us, it wasn't like that. For us, it was more rather of, my childhood for me was at a certain point being spoiled, quote unquote, and then that spoiledness going away. And it wasn't with like monetary things or anything. It was just being spoiled with like food, like the good things that I like.
Amen to that.
The experiences with family. A lot of my first cousins are not here. They're all abroad. They're all like back home in India and stuff like that. Or like even our family, like some in the US and stuff. Okay. So whenever they're further away though, but whenever you see family though, it felt nice, right? Yeah. And so that's how I remember my childhood as just, playing outside, being happy. I was a shy kid growing up and, just playing video games. Yeah. Right. It was a good time and eventually getting to my homework. And so that's how it was for me. From a family standpoint. But from a family standpoint though, this is kind of like I guess you can say like the flip side of the coin was that I never shared what was happening outside with family. Because I was that shy kid. And because I didn't have a voice for myself at that time. Right. I was the youngest out of 4 siblings. Ooh. So
you ever get beat up by your siblings?
Oh, I got 3 little sisters, brother. So I won't say beat up.
Mentally.
Mentally. Yeah, they're smart. They're a smart bunch. I love them. But it wasn't beat up. It was more rather of, oh, come try this. That was what brothers and sisters do. Yeah. And they got pictures, man. That's all I'm going to say.
Have you ever seen I get it. I get it. But no, that's good. That's good. I'm happy. Yeah. I think everyone's childhood, like I have a running joke with my family because back in the day, I think I was light skinned. And ever since I got outside, I just got black. So if you see my son, he's like a lighter shade. And then, my wife is lighter shade. And then you have me. But yeah. So I want to actually get into the conversation of, mental health. And it goes so deep, right? And there's a few things that I really want to touch on. So I have a few topics here that I really want to touch on. And the first thing is family regarding mental health. Like how important does family play a part in it?
Yeah. So I think that you're a makeup of your environment, right? And your environment definitely impacts who you are. And that's where you spend the majority of your time, right? If you're, outgoing, whatever, it's a different story, but still your environment makes up who you are. It has an impact on you subconsciously or consciously, right? So family plays an important part because that's your first, for some people, their go-to source of comfort, go-to source of safety. And for me, for myself, was that with family, as I mentioned, was I couldn't share with them what was happening.
And if you don't mind me asking, why did you feel that way?
I felt that way because I don't want to bring shame to my family. I don't want them to be concerned because everyone had, certain things going on in their life, right? Whether it be school or social problem, whatever, right? I did not want to be a burden on anyone. And so that's why I didn't share. So, family plays a pivotal role though, because family allows you to open up and truly potentially be yourself. Yeah. Right. And what I realized with family is that you need that support, that bench, so to speak, right? That foundation. And family really helps out of, being that shoulder to lean on, the ear to listen to, right? Being that sounding board. Yeah. And so when it comes to mental health, that's where I see family playing a role is to be like, okay, you know what? I see that you're struggling right now with this or that,
Mm-hmm.
or let's talk about this.
Yeah.
Let me help you get the help you need, whether it be through the community in terms of different non-for-profits or going to see the family doctor, etc. And really distinguish the difference between mental health and mental illness. Because mental illness is when you get diagnosed.
Yeah.
Mental health is what we go with, like stress. Sometimes we get anxious about something, but we don't need a diagnosis behind it. That's where you leave up to the professionals, right?
Now, see, I just learned something. I didn't know the difference between a mental illness and mental health.
Yeah.
So like this is kind of off topic, but but still on topic is like, so let's say mental health, like anxiousness,
right?
Like, can that be diagnosed as an illness?
You can have like anxiety disorder, from what I know, right? But sometimes you may be anxious to go on stage, right? Because you're doing a performance, for instance, right? So that's an example of, your mental health, for instance, where you may be anxious about, let's say, something along the before a basketball game. You have butterflies in your stomach.
Always.
Right? Exactly, right? So that's normal though. But sometimes we may have, for example, I know folks, and such as myself as well, I get, I have anxiety when it comes to dealing with tests.
Oh,
I didn't know that.
That was me.
Right. But it's like we can do things beforehand though. Right. And that
prepare.
Could be exactly prepare beforehand. That could be getting a good night's rest. For me, worked for me a little bit was like chewing gum. It took my mind off of it, right? Got me thinking about other things, right? Breathing, for instance, doing meditation, doing a breathing exercise can help out as well. But being diagnosed with anxiety disorder, I don't know too much about it, but I know there are like medications, treatments for, etc. So you got to do the distinction between mental health and mental illness. Mental health, everyone has. They all go through it. Mental illness, when you've actually been diagnosed by an actual professional within the field, saying that you have this, here's a treatment plan for you, or here's medication for this, etc. And so that's the difference.
Oh, okay, I get it. And also a book on the note of mental health and anxiety.
Right.
There's a book called The 5-Second Rule.
Oh yeah, okay, I've heard of it.
By Mel Robbins.
That's right. Okay, yeah.
I read that book. Amazing book. And that kind of, because I have analysis paralysis. So before I get into anything, I'm like, I'm so stuck on it, and where it will stop me from actually making a move.
Okay.
But with that, when it comes to anxiousness, she said that say that you're excited instead of anxious, because apparently they're the same chemicals.
Okay, yeah.
Between the two of being excited and being anxious. So instead of before you go to play a basketball game, instead of saying, "Oh, I'm anxious," I'm excited. I'm excited. So that's a big thing. And also with family, on the topic of family, I really wanted to ask about like what if your family isn't the closest? Like, can that play a huge part on your mental health?
For sure. So there was a point in time where I was not close to my family because I felt like I was not being understood. But they're always there, though. That's the one thing I didn't realize. You don't realize at the time.
Yeah,
right? Depending on your situation, you know what I mean? You have some type of family there. You just don't know who it is. And so for me, there's that disconnect because I thought that I was a lone wolf. I thought that my family was not there for me at all. But in reality, they were there. And so for me is that because I didn't have close family, I didn't have close friends either at that time. But I realized I actually did. It's just a matter of fact that my mind mentally was not there.
And drew you away from them.
100%. And that's where you go through withdrawal. I went through withdrawal of withdrawing from friend circles, withdrawing from family because of that. And I essentially made myself isolated. Yeah. And so to go back to your question is, our relationship with family, what if you're not that close? It's important to have friends out there, right? That you trust, that you're confident with. But if you don't have any friends, that sounds very harsh. Well, if you have no one to like open up to, for instance, right? And share what you're going through. There's community resources out there now. If you're going through school, there's counselors on site as well, depending on the education institution. depending on the region you live in, there's a lot of community resources available. You can pick up the phone, a lot of like helplines, whether it be catered to your community, your culture, it's getting out there as well now.
Oh, wow.
And seeing a GP, your family doctor, for instance, to be able to, have that conversation. So a lot of it requires you to push yourself a little bit to essentially go and have that conversation.
Get outside of that bubble.
Exactly.
Out of your bubble.
Exactly. Yeah. And if you're close to family and you feel comfortable sharing, that makes the journey better.
I like that. And you make a great point that we isolate ourselves. And I can say the same thing that like whenever I go through a tough time, like you mentioned it earlier, you don't want to be a burden. You don't want to put a burden on anyone.
Right.
But there's people who are there to help you. And there was a time in my life where I isolated myself from family and friends as well, because I'm like, no one will understand what I'm going through.
Right.
But I have to give a big shout out to my parents, because when I actually started to open up to them, the help that they were, like, I wish I was able to do this earlier, or I knew I could do this earlier.
Right.
Because like now I'm able to cry in your arms. I'm a big grown man now, but I'm able to cry in your arms. Exactly. I'm able to, let my heart out, and you're there to be open with me. And it's a beautiful thing. So shout out to my parents who are, supportive, and helpful. Another topic I kind of want to touch on was we're in a day and age that social media is out. It's powerful. It's bigger than anything now. Like there's no one spends less than 5 hours without their phone. It's always there. And I remember when I got into social media, because I'm big on comedy. Yeah. Right. And I think it was D.L. Hughley. I think he made a joke about like, if you're getting bullied online, just turn off your phone. Oh. And it sounds like easy. Like, okay, just turn off your phone. Yeah. But when you're on it literally 24/7, it can be a real like detriment to you. So I kind of want to touch on like how has social media played its part in like mental health and mental illness, because now I know the difference.
Right. So with social media, and this is where, I do monthly workshops, right? And I've done in the past, and things are a little bit slow now, but we're picking up again. Yeah. We do monthly workshops where we're inclusive. We include everyone to share what they're going through. And we have topics of folks that bring up about essentially what they're going through and the impact of social media. And so what they're saying is that they have to catch up. What you mean by catching up is that, for instance, for us males, I can speak from a male perspective. From us males, that we have to catch up amongst our peers. So and so has bought a new car. So and so, keep up with the Joneses essentially. Yeah. Right. And that does a detrimental impact on your mental health because you're always trying to catch up. Yeah. You're always trying to outperform someone else. But in reality is we don't know what's happening behind the scenes. Yeah. Right. And so the impact on mental health is that you're always checking your phone on 24/7. Yeah. Right. And you're always checking to see what he or she may be doing. And then that creates, anxiety, stress. Yeah. Right. That creates unwanted feelings of sadness. Right. That feelings of guilt. Like, once you go and do something, and you post it online, you make it available to the world for everyone, to see and to hear, you're like, was it worth it at the end of the day? Yeah. Right. And that's the impact of social media, is that we're always trying to catch up to see what he or she may be doing and however you self-identify. Now,
because this hits home to me, because like, and I don't know why you do this, but like, why do you feel like we always, like, why is there like, or always in competition with the other person? And again, that you mentioned it, we don't know what goes on background. Like, there's some people like I used to follow. Right. I had to stop following because I'm like, bro, it's too much. You're doing this. Yeah. And I try to reflect on myself. Like, why am I doing this? Right. Hence the reason why when you ask me, how are you doing today? Right. I'm grateful. Yeah. Because I had to really switch. I'm like, you know what? I may not be where I want to be. Right. But I'm grateful where I'm at.
Because you're gonna get there.
And also, I'm not where I used to be.
Exactly. I like that. Okay.
So I'm always self-reflecting.
Right.
And I realized, like, I was really not trying to keep up with the Jonas. I'm a realist. Yeah. Hey, if I don't got it, I don't got it. I don't have time. I don't have time to pretend to be someone I'm not.
Right.
But like, you have that in the back of your head, like, I want to get out of this. And you see, they're already doing this. They're already doing that. Why do we have that instinct as people? Because I know females do it as well. So it's not only just men, but why do we do that?
So that question it's hard because it's like more of a difference between a need and a want, right? For instance, my need right now is to have a sip of coffee, right? Honestly, right?
Yeah.
But, I may want that ginger ale, but it's out in the distance. By the way, there's a ginger ale out there, but it's out there in the distance though, right? So it's a difference between needs and wants. I want something, but do you actually really need it at that time? And so, a great example is I have a colleague of mine who I love and respect. He's not a colleague. He's my friend. Honestly, he's a brother of mine. He's he's an influencer and he's doing well. And man, Jazz was thirsty back in the day. I used to have hashtags like for like, follow for follow, because I wanted that clout. I wanted to be somebody. I wanted to be known. I wanted individuals to know who Jazz was. Now I don't care.
Me either.
Right. Like, I just don't care. I just don't care. But I went through that stint though, where for me it was like, oh, so-and-so's to become a model. Let me try to become a model. Let me increase my followers, right? Let me go and put these hashtags and do research. So it's a matter of wanting something, in my opinion, that we really want to strive to, do this or be better. But in reality is, do we actually really need it?
Yeah.
Right? Do we need to stress ourselves over saying, did I have 100 likes? Did I have 150 likes? If I have below 100, I got to post something to make it better. And it's honestly, it was like stressing me out. But at the end of the day, I'm like, why am I trying to be an influencer? For what reason? It was like, I just did it because so-and-so was doing it.
Yeah.
And so for me, it was like, you know what? It's not worth it. And I respect my mental health more than anything.
Yeah.
And so that's where I started to slowly unwind and really shut myself off from the world. And honestly, taking a break I took 1 year social media break.
Oh, a 1 year.
1 year, yeah.
Ooh.
And it was great. But once I hopped on that train again, I was like, damn, like I should have stayed off of it. But you need it nowadays though, right? Depending on what you're trying to achieve in life,
for
right?
Like businesses, purposes.
Exactly,
like
yeah.
that.
So that's the difference between needs and wants. But now when my friend and I talk, he's like, really? You're trying to do that? I'm like, bro, I tried everything.
Yeah.
He has like 20,000 plus, but he's doing it because he wants to become an actor. He wants to become a model. And he has no experience. So he knows his wants.
Exactly.
He knows the direction essentially.
Exactly. So it's important for people to really self-reflect and understand what are their needs and what are their wants. Exactly. Because, I've heard of people, you know what? I want that white on white range.
Right.
Do you need it? Exactly. No, or you can just have that Hyundai.
Exactly.
That's true. That I have. Glory to God. You know what I'm saying? And be grateful with that. Exactly. It's a song that just popped in my head is honestly J. Cole's, Love Yours.
Yeah.
I think, and there was a point in my life where I just literally had to just listen to that song on repeat because it really gives you a point. It gets you into a place to just understand, like, yo, I'm really grateful. If you really just take a time to sit back and watch what you have,
right,
you'd be like, wow,
yeah,
I'm actually beyond blessed.
And no, you're right. Sorry, go ahead.
No,
could you? Yeah, and you're 100% correct, because one thing I've realized is that you have to be grateful for what you have. You brought up a very key point, is being grateful for what you have now and what happened in the past. Essentially, I can't put in those exact terms, but what you don't have anymore. Essentially, right? What you've been through. Thank you for those experiences.
Yeah.
And thank you for what's going to come in the future.
Absolutely.
And that's one thing I've realized, is that being in the present moment does make a huge difference. We're all caught up living in this fantasy world out there.
Yeah.
This goes like, you remember Wolf of Wall Street?
Yes.
Right. And I think it was Leonardo DiCaprio. He's having lunch or something like that. He's first day on the trading floor, and talk about Fazali. I don't know what it was, right? But it's like out there, something made up. And that's what we create in our own minds.
Yeah.
Is that we create these scenarios.
Oh my gosh.
Of how we want to essentially be and act and think. But in reality is, do we really want that? And that's where you have the self-reflection period, as you mentioned, is that really realize, do I need this? No, I'm grateful for having my vehicle now because it's going to get me to places that are going to help me achieve what my goals are. That could be developing a family legacy. That could be developing different types of assets. That could be, developing relationships. So that's what you have to look at.
For sure. And also like even identifying like why, like you mentioned, like, you're chasing clout.
Right. Yeah.
And I find that now everyone and their granny is becoming an influencer. Everyone's trying to chase that clout. And it's like,
definitely.
Do you even want all that stress? Like because I also watch some celebrities who have a large following, and it sounds like their life is a lot more stressful than we actually know because like now they can't even pump gas. Like can you imagine without being harassed?
That's
like,
true. Yeah.
Like I remember one time I saw a celebrity. I don't say their name, but my wife and I were in Montreal and we saw this celebrity.
Right.
And I know because again, you're well known.
Right.
But when I saw them, they were all grungy, bearded up, hoodie on, and glasses. But I know who you are because I'm just good at faces like that.
Exactly, yeah.
But the face that he gave me was like, I know you know who I am.
Right.
For the love of God, please do not come here. I wasn't gonna go to him anyway. No. But like just to see someone in that state, kind of like maybe be like, you know what? I'm not trying to be famous. I don't want to be known like that because and again, I don't know what they're going through or what was happening that day, but that energy that they gave off was like, please, I just want to have this lunch.
Right.
And I even heard like of other celebrities on like different podcasts mention like, when they're having dinner, people just run up to them and I'm like, I'm with my family. I'm with my kids.
Right.
You guys can't be doing that. So for people who are trying to chase clout, make sure you're prepared for that type of lifestyle because it's a different thing.
It is. And, I remember it's like 2013, a long time ago, 2012. I don't even remember anymore. But Terrence Ross was at the Chipotle off of Front Street in New York. I was like, I'm like, who? Like, he walks in all tall with his family and everything. I'm like, or his cousin or someone at that time wearing shorts, just like, like us when we're kids, we were playing younger. We got t-shirt shorts on and everything.
Yeah.
And he just enjoying a burrito with his, his cousins looks like, with his younger brother or whatever. I was like, that's Terrence Ross, but I didn't say hi to him though.
Yeah.
He's just enjoying his time. Then you have the odd person. Are you Terrence Ross? He's like, yeah. And basically the person walked away because Terrence Ross wants to enjoy his meal. He's being human at that time.
Know good and hell well that's Terrence Ross.
Yeah.
Like he's 6'7", 6'6". Exactly. You know good and hell well who he is.
But that individual was so happy to see him. He's like, yeah, I am Terrence Ross. He handled it well. And then he went back to eating his lunch. So to your point is that it didn't seem like he wanted to be bothered. He was just enjoying his meal. But when someone came up, he was, thankful, acknowledged them, and then went along his merry way. Right.
That's true. I saw another basketball player, Lou Williams. I saw him at Yorkdale, and he had some gorillas with him. Okay, like he had 3 grown gorillas. Like I'm like, there's no way, shape, or form I'm going to add to that because I don't want to be Hey, I don't want to give off the wrong impression. I'm already a big black guy, but they're obviously much bigger than me.
Right.
I just walk about my business.
That's it. Yeah.
Walk about my business.
Yeah.
You mentioned this while we got on the topic of social media. You mentioned men, and I want to touch on men embracing mental health and the conversation,
right?
Because men, we have testosterone. We're always trying to be hard body. We're always trying to be competition.
That's right.
Like, can you touch on the importance of men actually coming together and having these conversations?
Yeah, definitely. So you mentioned one of the key points there, right? Is that you have first thing is we don't talk about emotions, right? That's like the unwritten rule, right? Or conduct code. Yeah, unwritten rule essentially. And it's more like we got to have this appearance of toughness, of hardness, right?
Can you imagine that though?
Yeah.
Like you can't even cry.
Exactly.
Like, why are you crying?
Exactly. What's wrong with you? Grow up, right? Like it's ridiculous. And you're hearing things like that, showing no emotion, showing, just you have this exterior motive essentially of its toughness, right? And it really embracing like just the macho man Randy Savage essentially. Right?
Yeah.
Right. And one thing I've realized is that that's not healthy. And so to go into your question is how are, men come together? The importance of it is that we don't want to embrace that because we look like, it's like embracing femininity essentially, right? Not being able to show emotional support because you're weak, right? And that they don't understand the strength of being vulnerable. And so for men to come together, and let's talk about, all races, all cultures, all religions, all ethnicities. If I missed anything, I apologize, right? But being able to bring everyone together, because if you look at it, we may come from different walks of life. We may speak different tongues, but our hearts beat as one.
Yeah.
Right. And the one thing I've realized that for men to come together is that it's important to drop this old facade of the, 3 things that I mentioned. And what you mentioned as well is because we're all trying to one up each other.
Yeah.
Why can't we just collaborate? Right. Collaborate in terms of moving things forward. And that could be, creating a system where, having a better development league, right, for folks like me, so I can actually play ball. Right, I got you, bro. right. Or for instance, I like competition. I think competition is healthy.
Yeah,
that should motivate you to do better in life, right? And so instead of us trying to one up each other and have this toxic masculinity of saying I'm gonna do better than you, I don't want you doing well or better than me. Why not saying, all right, you know what, you're not as good as me, but how can I help you improve? Let's work on your shot.
But even that, right? But see, like even that, like, like naturally, like if someone, like I remember in high school, like, and I wasn't the greatest basketball player,
right?
But I was very passionate,
right?
And I could move my feet. Defense, that was my thing. Like I wasn't the greatest shooter. Well, I can shoot, but defense was my specialty,
right?
So when I heard,
right,
you're not gonna stop me, in my head,
right,
it's like I'm gonna do whatever I can,
right.
And to a point where it can kind of get toxic. So how do you kind of balance healthy competition and not going overboard?
Yeah.
With that, like how do you do that?
Yeah, that's a great question. And that's something that you have to figure out for yourself individually. So what I'd say is that you have to have like an internal check, so to speak, saying, okay, am I doing this a little too much where it's bringing up negativity, right? And that's a term thrown out to negativity and stuff like that. But am I doing something that's basically bringing the other person down, but but in a bad way though, right? So what I try to do is try to put myself in their shoes, right? Trying to be like, okay, you know what I'm doing right now is not that right. What if someone said it to me, right? Trying to have that type of perspective, saying that, okay, if I were to bring someone down, then this is what, is happening, and this is how they're going to feel. So really embracing those emotions. Yeah. And so, for me, you gotta have that internal check is like, healthy competition for sure. Yeah. Smack talk a little bit and everything, right? You have to.
Right? I love it.
I like it too. So you don't have to, it's up to you. Yeah. But it's I think it's good to have, right? Because it should motivate you and drive you to be better. Right. But then also behind that checks and balances saying, how's it going to impact the other person? How's it going to make them feel, for instance, right? You can't control everything, how they're going to react to it. Yeah. But you can think about from generally ideas is what can you do to be better?
Got you. Right. I know. I like that. And you also mentioned that, we need to, I guess, come together more. And I'm seeing a lot more now, especially like in the field that I'm in with even like the women. Like women right now are flourishing. They're all coming together. They're all having businesses together. They're all doing things. And I always ask my wife, I'm like, I don't see not one man. Yeah. I never see no boss man group. Have you seen a boss man group? Any of you guys? No. Yeah. We're all in competition. Yeah. And it's like, why? Yeah. I see people in 2 different businesses. So like obviously like real estate. Right. 2 different brokerages. Yeah. Coming together. Wow. So I work for this brokerage. They work for another brokerage, but they're coming together and they're building a business together and they're working together. And it's like, I love seeing these women right now. Yeah. Because it's like they dropped all ego. Right. They dropped all competition with each other and they're all working together. They call themselves boss babes, boss, and all these different bosses. I don't want to go into all the different words that they use, but it's like, it's still good to see because like they dropped the ego.
They did.
And they're supposed to be known as a more emotional, more catty, so to speak. And but like it's like they dropped all of that. Like, you know what? Right, we're gonna grow together. And I don't see no men doing that. And the only person that I know, it's not really business-like, but it's our mutual friend.
That's right.
Shout out to Russell.
That's right. That's Russell. That's right. He's the one
for a conversation for men.
That's right. ACM. That's right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So and then we're able to actually have that conversation. So I really hope I'm really rooting for that business to flourish where men can actually come together and have 100%. These conversations because it's so needed.
It is. It's so needed. And to build upon your point further is that there's strength and vulnerability. We have to understand that when you're being real, right? And look, there's gonna be folks out there when you're being real, they're gonna laugh in your face.
Yeah.
Right. Like, what a loser or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But there's gonna be folks out there that 1 out of the 100, let's say, or 2 out of the 100 make up for that and make it, 5,000 times % better, right? They're going to make up for that 100 because that one person is going to be like a million people, essentially, if you think about it.
Yeah.
And they're going to make your day that much better. So being strength when you're vulnerable, they can be like, wow, you're going through this right now. I actually went something very similar. This is what I did to overcome it.
Yeah.
Or, you know what, you're struggling right now with this. Here's something that could potentially help you out, whether it be resources, making connections, whatever the case may be. And so there's power and strength and vulnerability.
Absolutely.
Right. And we'll get into this a little bit later on is the strength of vulnerability and how it's able to essentially help you, right, become stronger. Because the more real you are out there, and you brought a really good point at beginning of this podcast that there's not enough folks that are real out there. Right.
I've firsthand, and I'm like, you are not what you said you were.
No.
So I'm like, and it kind of turned me out. And honestly, I remember my first ever listing and the videographer that I was working with, he said, and this might sound bad, but I have to say it. He said, real estate is probably like the fakest industry that he's ever been in because he was a realtor at the time and he left. And I asked him why.
Yeah.
Well, he said, he's like, there's so much people that I've actually got to meet that on social media, they're this, but in real life, they're that.
Wow.
And when he said that, I was like, wow.
Yeah.
And I agree with him because I'm like, there's some, people that I've met. I'm like, you're not what you say you are. But then they come across so like, I don't know, like not boastful, but like very like
egotistical, you could say.
Yeah. I'll say that. And it's like, why? Like, why are we doing this? Like, well, there's no need for that. That's not needed.
That's true.
So, that it's just something that popped in my head. It's like, honestly, I don't have time for all this, negative competition and like, it's just negative competition. Again, competition is good.
It is, yeah.
But when it's like toxic and like very fake, I don't have time for that.
Not even, not even.
Exactly. So now I have one other, topic that I popped in my head is like, you mentioned earlier about like there's different avenues that you can go to.
Right.
Can you talk about like the cost of counseling? Because I feel like that's another hindrance. So I do feel like there's people who may want to seek help, but when they look at the price tag, maybe they're not in the best financial means to do it. It's like, how can I even, like this past 2 years, we were in a pandemic, and obviously this affected a lot of people's mental health, right? But like, let's say I lost my job. How can I afford mental health? How can I afford to get out of this space? Because you now have to pay someone to listen to me.
Right.
So can you touch a little bit on like the cost and what are some like different resources?
Mm-hmm. So the costs vary depending on, who you're trying to speak to.
Mm-hmm.
Now, we live in Ontario, right? And we're covering the OHIP, but some folks don't have OHIP because they're new immigrants, for instance, right? Or they're folks that, basically they don't have like a PR, their PR or their citizenship, for instance. So it's hard for them. Now, for that, it's when you go see a psychiatrist that you're covered, right? Or where you don't have to pay. You probably co-pay for maybe medication or anything if you have insurance if you're working. Now, costs vary. So there's community resources that are available out there for free, right? That you could use. That could be support groups, peer groups. There could be, a helpline, for instance, but you're just scratching the surface there, right? But it's good though. It's good to support you amongst that. And peer groups are great because it helps you with that. But then there's also resources that you got to pay for. And that's seeing, the psychotherapists, that's seeing the psychologist, the social worker, and they vary anywhere from $45 to $300
per session.
Yeah, per session.
Wow. And
the thing is, though, is that some people have insurance, some folks don't.
Yeah.
And the reason why the cost of counseling is from my experience, right, is that it varied because as an individual that's trying to get a treatment plan for you, interim treatment plans, what you can do, talk out your feelings or, do some type of exercises that could help you out and, really develop tools for your toolbox, right? So what you're going through in life, you can take out that tool essentially and develop the methodologies to get you through whatever. Is that you see one person, but you can't see after one session, right? You have to go 2, 3. Then you realize, you're paying $45 per session and you realize this person's not working for me. Or you go 8, 9 sessions deep. It's like, I'm not seeing the results. I tried doing the exercise you want me to do, or I tried working this out and you go someone else. Someone's like $75.
Yeah.
Right. I remember a point where my costs were so ridiculous. You have an initial session, which costs maybe like $150, $200 or whatever. But then, they're hourly like $150, $175. And they keep like going up and up. Like, oh, my salary increased because my hourly rate increased because the clinic's charging me more. They're trying to take more money out of my pocket, which makes sense. Everyone's got to eat.
Yeah.
And now that what should have been, $300, $400, and you're 7, 8 sessions in, 9 sessions in, becomes like a total investment rather of like $2,500 to $3,000.
Damn.
And insurance doesn't cover that.
Yeah.
When you're working, for instance. And then as you mentioned, the pandemic, some folks weren't working.
Yeah.
So how could they get that help? They're unable to, or some were, and it wasn't adequate to what they needed. So cost worry.
So how do we? Is there a possibility that there can be a space where that can be free? Like because I understand people need to eat. But there's people suffering.
There are, and go ahead.
No, I'll let you to continue.
Yeah, no, you're right. There are folks that are suffering, and that's why develop for free. I can't answer that question because I'm not in government, right? And I won't be able to, be able to essentially provide an answer. But what I can provide, my perspective, is that not a lot, but some psychologists, psychotherapists out there, social workers have a sliding scale. So they have a sliding scale of, let's say their initial rate's like $40 or whatever. That's the low end. High end, they charge 75. So I have a sliding scale of pay whatever you can within that range, and just be honest with them. So when I went to go, I saw many therapists, right, and I took back a reflection point, like, why am I going through quite a few people, right? What can I do to be more open and to really take part in this therapy, for instance.
Yeah.
One thing I've realized was that I told them, like, look, these are my bills. This is what I'm paying, right? This is where my money's going. I have crazy amounts of debt from like student loans and everything, right? I've started this startup, but they got into more and more debt and everything like that. I tried putting my insurance doesn't cover this, so I'm putting on credit card, etc., or I'll transfer you the money. And I'm trying to make ends meet. Like, okay, you know what, Jazz, thanks for being honest with me. $60.
So having that conversation
and being upfront, really helps. It really helps out.
That's good. I like that. A topic that popped in my head, and I guess you don't have to touch on it if you don't want to, but like you mentioned, like different medications.
Yeah, and I think this is a point that I should have brought up earlier when you asked the childhood question. I apologize for this. Was what I was going through at that time. So as you may know, when it comes to medication, is that it's supposed to help the right balance and mix to balance your emotions and to balance, what you're going through at that time. So for me, I was in a very toxic relationship, right? Very toxic relationship. And what happened was that is the accumulation, as I mentioned, from like what happened when I was younger to right about now, to essentially being able to, as I mentioned, with the Coke bottle, right? It just burst. I don't know where, but throwing a couple of Mentos inside there as well, right? It was just crazy. And what happened was that, and then why it's linked to medication was, it helped me for that certain period of time was, no matter how much that time to bring this up is still hard.
Take your time.
So I attempted suicide 5 times. Right. And the reason why, I went through my journey was because of a toxic relationship. Right. And the toxic relationship, brought out everything.
Yeah.
Right. And, medication played a role in helping me stabilize my mood because I was diagnosed with bipolar OCD. Now, was it a real diagnosis or a misdiagnosis? That's a chat we can have about after.
Yeah, for sure.
Right. Because it's all on the spectrum, right? It's all on the spectrum. And, when you're 30 seconds away, right, and you survive, something inside tells you, don't do it.
No, not yet.
Right? Yeah, exactly. It says your time's not up yet.
Yeah.
Right? Just something else out there for you. Something along those lines. I don't remember the exact words, but hopefully one day I'll remember what I said to myself, or internally I said to myself. I basically pulled back. And, the first 3 were really major. Yeah. And I never harmed anyone. Right? I always harmed myself. Right? I never harmed anyone because I will never do that.
You care about people too much.
Yeah, my heart's too big.
Yeah.
But the last 2 it got better and better. The last 2 times. And so what happened was that when I started taking medication, it's like found the right balance and mix. And so luckily when I was younger, I was covered under my parents' plan. Right. So that helped out. But as you get older, you realize Mom ain't covering for you anymore.
Hey,
right? And those co-pays add up. Trust me.
Hey,
and so
I know.
Right. Trust me. And the cost of medication it's tough for someone who's going through this because you're paying for you go see your psychiatrist, but you're also seeing someone else on top of that to provide that treatment.
Yeah.
Or psychiatrist to provide treatment of seeing a psychologist. So, okay, let me do DBT, right? Dialectical behavior therapy. Or CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy. And there's a bunch out there, but figuring what works for you. And you're paying, you're like, and medication copay is like $70. I'm like, wait, my insurance doesn't cover that?
Yeah.
But they cover a good chunk of it, or they don't cover anything at all.
Yeah.
It's like, wow, it begins to add up. And the investments that you make to yourself is skyrocketing.
And that's and first and foremost, I want to thank you for being open and transparent. And again, as I mentioned earlier in the interview, like when I was introducing you, being vulnerable. Yeah. Because I again, these conversations need to be had.
100. And
the reason why I brought up, medication is because it's like there's so much pieces that play into it. Right. Where, sometimes like I've met people personally, other than yourself that experience the same thing,
right?
And that Coke bottle, and they had to be put on medication. But I've seen the outcome of what that medication did to certain people, and it's like I don't want to equate it to like seeing someone high on crack, because I've witnessed it and I've actually looked. I call them zombies because because when I remember seeing one dead. We were staring dead in the face, and I looked at his eyes, and I'm like, "You don't know that I'm here. Like you have no idea that I'm here."
Yeah,
and it's kind of like something like the same thing when it comes to these different medications, because it's like. I will see a person before,
right,
and now they're on the medication. I see them like, you're not you.
Exactly.
But there's a balance because it's treating something, but it's also harming another thing.
It is.
And then you mentioned, the price. So
Right.
for people who do need it, it's like, there's nothing I can't afford this.
Right.
And that's where you're seeing a lot more, like, I guess people going to other sources,
right,
to cope with it. And we don't really dive into that more. But again, thank you for sharing. And this is something I really do want to talk about more and find out more, because again, I'm curious to always learn, right, and see how can it better, someone else. But I kind of want to move forward. I want to move forward. So you are in the. I want to circle back to you, and you're a mental advocate. You're volunteering,
right?
Like what kind of led you to get to a place where, like, what, I want to start volunteering within this space.
So for me, it was becoming a voice for the voiceless, right? Being able to grant yourself permission to shine your light, allowing others to shine as well, right? I like to think about it as lighting a candle, right? The birthday candle, right? You light one, and the goal is to light the others, right? We're not that old, but being able to do that, right? You light one, you start lighting others, and if you look at it, it becomes a nice bright light.
Sorry, you mentioned that we're not that old, but like you reach a certain age where you just have to get the two numbers.
That's it. That's all I'm gonna say.
Sorry, continue.
Yeah, but it's true though. It's a bad analogy. Better analogy.
No, I like it. I'm gonna use that for now on.
You got a two number. That's it.
Yeah.
But it's true though if you think about it, because then the cake becomes a lot more brighter, for instance, right, etc. But for me, that's what led to me change, because there was nothing available for folks at that time from different backgrounds. The treatment there that was available, or not the treatment rather, but the resources were too westernized. Right, I'm a first generation Canadian.
Yeah,
I've embraced Canadian culture, and Canadian culture. Beauty thing about Canadian culture is whatever you make of it.
Yeah,
essentially, right. We don't have no distinguished, identity. Right. It's a mosaic culture, as they say. We learn in school, I think, mosaic or something like that. But it's a mix of everyone, right?
Yeah.
And so for me was that since there was no type of resources out there, I was like, let me start being a changer advocate for folks out there saying, you know what, someone who's a first generation Canadian, someone who has been through the system, quote unquote, is struggling within the system, let me become the advocate for change. And so what I went through, my 5 attempts, I want no one to attempt at all. Males are most likely to attempt suicide and succeed. And I don't remember the exact stat, but it's something along the lines that, why are men doing this? How can we, become an advocate for change? So I started focusing on, for me, is volunteering with CAMH.
Oh.
Right. I'm a steward, so I help them raise money. I haven't been active as much this year, but what we try to do is raise money for their gala and for research for mental health and for CAMH Foundation.
Okay.
Right. And I was, it's back in 2018, 2019, I got a tour of the facility of how, we're raising corporate funds and the impact of them to buy a new machine that can basically scan the image of your brain.
Oh, wow.
Or funding research for this. And it was really cool to see that and to witness it.
Yeah.
And that's what it was for me, is that I don't want anyone, for me personally, is to go through or even act upon attempting suicide. That's why I became an advocate for change. That's what I got involved. So I got involved with CAMH. I started getting involved locally within my grad school of basically, creating a group for folks to basically share their experiences. I got involved in terms of, social mental health is dedicated towards the South Asian community at first, but we're expanding though and creating partnerships with other communities.
Yeah,
because what that community is going through, we're going through as well.
Yeah,
and if we have been able to get access to resources or funding, let's help you get there as well.
That's amazing,
right? Because at the end of the day, as I mentioned, our hearts beat as one.
Yeah, I love that. I'm gonna get that tattooed on me. I really love that. I don't know, for some reason that's really gravitated to me. I love that our hearts as one. That is beautiful. That is beautiful. And you said something that kind of like struck a nerve in me, because like it is true, men do succeed more. And I remember in high school, like our high school, we've experienced like 3 suicides in 1 year.
Oh no.
And it was tough.
Yeah.
Like it was tough for the students. And it was just like everyone kind of walked on eggshells a little bit.
Right.
Because like you don't know what's going on. And it was like the high school I was going to was known as like a very like toxic school. Like, and I was even talking to an old teacher that used to go there and used to teach there. And he would ask, and I was talking to him, he's like, you guys as students didn't know how bad it was, because you guys eventually kind of got used to it, which sounds so bad.
Right, yeah.
But like the teachers were trying like everything. We had cops everywhere. They tried everything. And it's like, it just breaks my heart to know that, you know, these, all 3 of them I knew and were good friends with, and just to know that, again, they didn't come. Right. Like, there's one that like, I saw you the day before and I asked you what's up.
That's right.
I talked to you. Let me know. And then the next day you find out that it's like, I just saw you.
That's right.
So it's like, it's very important that, you know, these spaces again are built, and I'm happy that people like yourself are involved, because again, you guys have a story.
Yeah.
You know, and a question I have for you is like, how has your involvement impacted you?
Yeah. So my involvement has really allowed me to have a lot more self-confidence with myself. It has allowed me to really take that confidence and spread it to others. And so what is it also empowered me to essentially start thinking of ideas of how we're able to expand, not just from, you know, from a male perspective, but also having from a female perspective as well. So as I mentioned, we do like monthly workshops. That's social mental health. And we talk about suicide prevention, talk about doing it for the gram, for instance, right? There's a bunch of stuff out there. And so we have female perspective involved as well. So that really allowed me to see of, you know, what you thought was being a burden on someone, right? That, you know, you're just a waste of life, for instance. But taking that perspective from, let's say, a family member or from like a female having me self-identify and understand like you're actually not like that at all. Or how your impacts of what you do, right, are going to essentially, so the decisions you make and the actions you take, how they impact others. And so that empowered me to have that perspective. Yeah. Right. That empowered me to develop that confidence and, you know, use vulnerability as my strength and really empowered me to focus on becoming an advocate for others. So now my EI, my emotional intelligence has gone up. I love it. And now when I walk into a room, kind of like yourself, you know, you can read someone's face, you understand who they are from a body language perspective of how you identify that celebrity right away, right? Even though they try hiding up. It's very similar to me that I'm able to understand like the way that the emotions are in the room, how you're going to be, how you're going to act. And I'm getting better at it. I'm not perfect, right? But what happens is that I'm able to really get better at understanding what your actions may or may not be and how you react to what I'm saying right now. And so that's how it's changed me and empowered me, because I'm trying to teach others that as well. Right. With simple things.
That's beautiful. And again, the fact that you have a story gives you the superpower.
Yeah, definitely.
To save another life, which is honestly amazing. And, you know, time has been far spent, but I have one last question.
Definitely.
What advice would you give someone who is struggling alone and doesn't know where to find help?
So my advice for someone that's, you know, feels isolated, right, and struggling alone, as you mentioned, is that to reach out to community resources. What happened a few years ago, I'm not saying a number of years, but, you know, what happened, over 10 years ago, for instance, less than 10 years actually. We were on, like, you were able to Google, but nothing was available. But when you're able to Google things now, mental health resources, everything available, there's so much available out there, and it's amplified, right? And it's amplified to the point where you're able to talk to someone in privacy, right? And they're going to respect what you have to say.
Yeah.
Right. Obviously, you're not harming others, for instance, but what they'll do is, you can reach out to helplines, for instance, crisis lines as well as 24/7 available, depending on your geography in your area.
Yeah.
So I encourage you to reach out to those, especially if you're going to self-help or down that one right away. In addition to that, if you feel like you're isolated from family or friends, right, it's hard for you to reach out to them, I encourage you to work with your family doctor or walk-in clinic, for instance, just a GP, general practitioner, to essentially guide you in the right direction.
Love it.
Right. So I encourage you to really take it. Yeah, that's right. Seek help. That's going to really move you forward in terms of your advancement of yourself.
I love it. I love it. And what's funny? Everything regarding like knowledge, advice,
right?
The betterment of yourself, trying to learn from different scenarios or just trying to grow.
Right.
The common thing from season 1 to now season 2, episode 3 is us as people need to seek advice.
That's right.
Seek help.
Right.
So, that's very, very, very important. And that's it. That's our time. Awesome. I want to thank you again for, taking the time to sit down and again, be vulnerable and share. And I truly, truly appreciate it. Yeah. Do you have any socials or anything you want to promote?
If I would, I don't remember the exact handle for CAMH, but, check out camh.ca. Check out Social Mental Health as well.
Text it to me, and I'll make sure to put it in this description.
And this is going back to my 2016, 2017 self at Jaz Khehra. No, I'm joking, y'all. Honestly, just follow those 2 organizations. They're fantastic, and other organizations within the community as well.
That is beautiful.
Yeah.
Well, everyone, thank you for tuning into the DHomer Real Estate Podcast. You can listen on all streaming platforms: Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and iHeartRadio. You can follow the podcast on IG at the DHomer Real Estate Podcast, TikTok at the DHomer Real Estate Pod, and Twitter, the DHomer Pod, sorry. And then you can follow me at on IG and TikTok at DHomer Real Estate. So thank you guys for tuning in and enjoy the rest of your day. Deuces.
Thank you.